Welcome to another deep dive. We've got quite the collection of excerpts for this one,
Oh, yeah.
One World Uniting Voices,
Lots to think about.
3 volumes worth of interviews with all sorts of thought leaders, and I am ready to dive in.
Yeah, it's a fascinating collection. Just looking at the range of perspectives here
Right.
about how the world is, well, not just changing externally, but like internally too.
Yeah, like with human consciousness itself.
Yeah, exactly.
So how do we even begin to process all this? I mean, we've got snippets from over 50 interviews.
Yeah, at least. And they're sort of loosely grouped into themes like exploring consciousness,
Yeah.
pioneering change, inspiring collaboration. And,
Spiritual insights.
yeah, spiritual insights, exactly.
So where do we start?
Well, several interviewees talk about consciousness as a field,
Okay.
like not just something that, our brains produce, but like an actual field.
Okay.
For example, Dr. Ervin Laszlo connects this idea to ancient wisdom traditions like Vedantic unity consciousness, which proposes that there's like a fundamental oneness to all of existence.
Okay.
And he suggests that this ancient idea is actually supported by like modern discoveries in quantum physics.
So rather than just being something that our brains produce, consciousness is a field that we all participate in. That's a big idea.
It is a big idea, and it comes up in different contexts too.
Okay.
For instance, Donna Nellum talks about messy humanness and the creative potential that's found in those in-between spaces where things aren't fully defined yet.
It's interesting how this idea of a field of consciousness isn't just theoretical. Alex Moses talks about tapping into it to overcome fear. Octavia Brooks uses it to guide her decision-making, and Tom Palladino even links it to healing with scalar energy.
Yeah.
What do you think about that last one? Scalar energy is a pretty out there concept.
It is. Tom Palladino's work is definitely on the fringe, but it raises some interesting questions. If there is this field of consciousness that we're all connected to, what are the possibilities for healing and transformation? And he believes that scalar energy is one way to tap into that.
It makes me wonder what you think about all this. Does any of this resonate with your own ideas about consciousness, or does it challenge what you thought you knew?
It's definitely thought-provoking. Moving on from the kind of metaphysical, we see a lot of the interviewees who are actively working to make a change in the world.
Okay.
They're taking on all sorts of issues. Some of them are focused on big systemic problems, and others are more focused on individual growth and transformation.
Yeah, it's really inspiring to see all the different approaches people are taking, like Clive Elliott QC, for instance, is working within the legal system to improve societal well-being. I mean, that's a huge undertaking.
It is.
And then we have Seth Elliott Santoro, who's teaching breath work for personal transformation.
Right.
I mean, talk about 2 totally different paths to change.
It is fascinating how diverse their methods are. Blaine Bartlett is all about building positive habits. And Anthony Upward designed something called the Flourishing Business Canvas, which is a framework for designing businesses that benefit not just the owners, but also society and the environment as a whole.
Wow. I love that he's challenging the traditional model of business as being solely about profit.
Yeah.
It's like he's saying we can do well by doing good.
Exactly.
And then there's Stephen Bassett, who's advocating for the disclosure of extraterrestrial presence.
Yeah.
Now, that's a unique approach to changing the world.
Whether or not you agree with Bassett's ideas, you have to admit it's thought-provoking.
For sure.
And it speaks to a larger theme that runs through a lot of these interviews, which is this rejection of outdated models.
Okay.
Like Michelle Holliday criticizes traditional business approaches, and Dr. Mark B. Cooper questions typical leadership paradigms. There's a sense that the old ways of thinking and doing just aren't working anymore.
It's like they're all saying we need new ways of thinking and being if we want to create a better future, which leads me to wonder, what changes are you feeling called to make in the world? Have any of these pioneers sparked an idea for you?
It's a great question to consider. And despite all these individual efforts, many of the interviewees acknowledge that we can't go it alone.
Yeah.
They emphasize the importance of collaboration, connection, and community for tackling the complex problems we're facing.
That makes a lot of sense. You can't solve global problems in isolation.
Right.
It's interesting to see all the different ways that people are approaching collaboration.
Right.
Like Fyodor Kinnikov uses dialogue to bridge differences and co-create solutions, and Mansi Kakar believes that authentic human connection is the key to real transformation. What stands out to you about those approaches?
Well, I find Fyodor Kinnikov's emphasis on dialogue particularly compelling. It's not about just, finding common ground or compromising. It's about actually generating new solutions together
Wow.
that incorporate everyone's perspectives and needs.
And Doug Brunke also talks about building bridges. He sees global trade as a way to not just, do business, but to like connect cultures and promote understanding.
Right.
That's a really interesting take on the idea of, one world uniting voices, isn't it?
Absolutely. It highlights the potential for positive change through collaboration on a global scale.
Yeah.
But it also brings up the important question of how do we move from transactional relationships
Right.
to genuine trust-based collaborations? And thankfully, we have insights from people like Robert Butwin and Jeff Klein who offer really concrete advice on building those kinds of connections.
Their insights are definitely valuable. I'm curious, where in your life do you see the potential for collaboration to have a bigger impact? What steps could you take to nurture those relationships, whether it's in your work, your personal life, or your community?
That's something for all of us to consider now. Before we move on, there's one more thread I want to touch on, and that's the presence of spirituality in many of these interviews.
Oh.
It's not necessarily religious, but there's a sense of interconnectedness, a belief in a higher purpose, and a recognition of the power of love that comes up again and again.
Yes, and it's interesting to see the different forms this spirituality takes.
Yeah.
Some speakers like Lynn Claire Dennis, who researches near-death experiences, and Octavia Brooks, who works with elementals, have had like profound mystical experiences. And then there's Tom Palladino with his explorations of scalar energy, which he believes has a spiritual component.
Right.
What do you make of all that?
It's certainly fascinating. These individuals are exploring realms that many consider beyond the material world.
Yeah.
Yet others find spirituality in more grounded ways, like Dr. Lexis Johnson integrates holistic practices into her daily life, while Deborah S. Levine sees storytelling as a deeply spiritual act. It seems that there are many paths to connecting with something greater than ourselves.
It makes you wonder, how do you define spirituality for yourself? Do any of these perspectives resonate with your experience, or do they challenge what you previously thought?
It's a question worth pondering. And with that, I think we've covered a good amount of ground in this first section of One World Uniting Voices. There's certainly a lot to unpack here.
We've seen how these diverse voices are exploring consciousness, pioneering change, inspiring collaboration, and even tapping into the spiritual dimension, and we've just scratched the surface.
Indeed, in our next segment, we'll delve deeper into the characteristics of the world these voices are envisioning, and we'll explore some of the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead. It's fascinating how, alongside these big ideas about consciousness and, societal change, there's also this strong emphasis on the importance of authentic human connection. It's not just about working together on projects, but relating to one another in more genuine, heart-centered way.
That really resonates with me. Mancy Cocker talks about, weaving mindsets for collective transformation.
Right.
And she highlights vulnerability and presence as key ingredients in that process. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, Kakar's perspective reminds us that real transformation requires more than just intellectual understanding. It demands an emotional and even spiritual shift.
Okay.
And it connects to what Mitchell Levy, who studies credibility, has found. True credibility comes from aligning your inner values with your outward actions.
Okay.
It's about showing up authentically and building trust through genuine connection.
It makes you wonder if this yearning for authentic connection is a response to the increasing digitization and depersonalization in our world. What do you think?
It's certainly a possibility. However, I also think it's important to remember that technology isn't inherently good or bad.
Right.
It's a tool.
Okay.
Think about Melissa Hughes, the neuroscientist.
Yeah.
She sees technology as a potential tool for connection,
Yeah.
but emphasizes the need to balance it with practices that foster empathy and emotional intelligence.
So it's not about rejecting technology. It's about being mindful of how we use it and making sure it serves our human needs for connection and well-being.
That's exactly. Speaking of human needs, another important theme that emerges from these interviews is this idea of engaging the future.
Okay.
Many of the speakers are grappling with complex issues like leadership technology and sustainability.
Right.
In a world that's changing at an unprecedented pace.
Yeah. Dr. Eric Zabigalski's vision of leadership in the future definitely caught my attention.
Right.
He talks about leaders who embrace ambiguity and utilize both masculine and feminine energies for holistic growth. It's a far cry from the traditional, command and control model of leadership.
Yeah. What did you think?
I found his ideas really refreshing.
Yeah.
It's a much more nuanced and integrated approach to leadership, one that recognizes the importance of both strength and vulnerability, logic and intuition.
And then there's Jeff Waldner, the smilologist.
Right?
He actually believes that like humor and storytelling can play a key role in personal and collective evolution.
I love that he's bringing levity into the conversation.
Yeah, Woolener's perspective reminds us that even in the face of serious challenges, we don't have to lose our sense of joy and playfulness.
Yeah.
In fact, those qualities may be essential for navigating change and fostering connection.
And we can't forget Doug Bronke, who envisions global trade as a way to not just do business,
Right.
but to build bridges between cultures and promote understanding.
Yeah.
It ties in so nicely with the idea of one world uniting voices.
It's a reminder that interconnectedness can manifest in many forms, including economic ones. Now, while these grand visions of the future are inspiring, I also appreciate that many of the speakers offer very practical wisdom for navigating everyday life.
Yeah.
For example, Robert Butwin shares insights on building genuine relationships
Okay.
by focusing on long-term connection and mutual value. That's something we can all apply in our own lives.
Absolutely. And Brady Mick, the design thinker, encourages us to embrace stillness, ask thoughtful questions, and really listen to our intuition. These are practices that anyone can incorporate into their daily routine, regardless of their background or profession.
Right.
What are your thoughts on those suggestions?
I think they highlight the importance of cultivating self-awareness and inner wisdom.
Okay.
In a world that's constantly bombarding us with information and stimulation, it's more important than ever to create space for reflection and introspection.
And what's so inspiring is that these voices aren't just talking about problems.
Right.
They're actively creating solutions,
Yes.
whether it's Anthony Upward's Flourishing Business Canvas, Donna Nellam's collaborative design frameworks, or any of the other initiatives we've discussed. They're putting these principles into practice and demonstrating that a better world is possible.
Their efforts serve as a powerful reminder that each of us has the capacity to create positive change, both in our own lives and in the world around us. It begs the question, what kind of world do you see emerging from these conversations, and what role do you imagine yourself playing in its unfolding?
It's such a powerful question to contemplate. We've seen how these individuals are exploring consciousness, pushing boundaries, collaborating in innovative ways, and bringing a spiritual perspective to their work in the world. It paints a hopeful, albeit challenging picture of what the future could hold.
Indeed. It's clear that the world these voices are envisioning isn't a utopia.
Right.
It's a world where people are actively grappling with complex issues, seeking solutions, and working together to create a more just compassionate and sustainable future. But what are the defining characteristics of this emerging world, and what specific challenges might we face in bringing it to fruition? That's what we'll explore in our final segment.
Okay, so we're back for the final part of our deep dive into One World Uniting Voices. And, we've covered a lot of ground already.
Yeah.
Exploring consciousness and all these change makers and the power of collaboration and even like the spiritual dimension.
Right.
But now I'm really curious to hear like your take on what this new world looks like. The one that all these voices seem to be pointing towards.
Well, one thing that really strikes me is that it's not some like far off utopia, you know?
Yeah.
It's a future that's being shaped by real people who are tackling real challenges.
Right.
We've got thinkers like Perry Noppert, the founder of the Octopus Movement, who advocates for like embracing nonlinear thinking and redefining success in a world that's growing increasingly complex.
It definitely does. The old models of thinking and doing things just don't seem adequate anymore,
Yeah.
You need like fresh perspectives and approaches, and Knoppert's ideas seem to fit the bill. I'm also fascinated by Viktor Vodorsky's emphasis on regeneration and interconnection
Yeah.
as keys to not just surviving, but like thriving in this new landscape. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, Vodorsky's perspective really highlights the interconnectedness of everything.
Yeah.
It reminds us that our actions have ripple effects.
Right.
It's a call to move beyond sustainability towards a regenerative approach that actually restores and revitalizes the systems we depend on.
It's such a powerful shift in thinking, and it's not just about the external world, right?
Right.
We've also seen how many of these voices are emphasizing the importance of like inner transformation and spiritual growth. Dr. Miriam Zilbergleit, for instance, advocates for compassion in medicine.
Right.
And Seamus Fox is using breath work to cultivate heart-centered leadership.
Yeah, their work speaks to the need for a more holistic approach to well-being,
Okay.
one that acknowledges the interconnectedness of mind, body, and spirit.
Yeah, it seems that this emerging world isn't just about like technological advancements or social change, but also about a deeper evolution of consciousness.
Absolutely.
I think that's a crucial point. It's like these voices are collectively saying the challenges are real, but so are the solutions. And the solutions lie in tapping into our collective potential, our creativity, and our shared humanity.
Exactly. And that brings us back to you.
Okay.
What resonates most with you from all that we've explored? What opportunities or challenges do you see in this emerging world?
And perhaps most importantly, what role do you feel inspired to play in its unfolding? Because, as we've seen from these interviews, this isn't just about like passively observing a shift happening out there.
Right. Each of us has a part to play in co-creating the future,
Yeah.
whether through our work, our relationships, our creative expression, or simply by showing up in the world with more awareness and intention.
Right.
We can all contribute to this emerging world.
It's been an incredible journey exploring these diverse voices, and it's clear that One World Uniting Voices isn't just a title, it's a call to action.
Yeah.
A call for each of us to step into our power, connect with our purpose, and join the chorus of those working to create a more compassionate, just, and sustainable world.
What a powerful way to sum it up. We've explored a lot of inspiring ideas and perspectives in this deep dive, and hopefully it sparks some new thoughts and ideas for you as you navigate your own path in this evolving world.
Thanks for joining us. Until next time, keep exploring, keep connecting, and keep creating the future you want to see.